cluster in the middle, guys. Cluster in the middle.
Don't be afraid of the middle.
It'll probably be the last time anyone has said that.
Good job, everybody.
Aubrey, we're good?
Hey, everybody. Okay, one more thing, because I know it's really hot. But so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the first speaker come up, and then we're gonna have you guys kind of move into the shade, because it is very hot. We don't want anybody to, get a little too overheated. There's also bottles of water in the back, and there's some on the side as well. If anybody needs water, do not hesitate to go get water. Please do not lock your knees. We don't need anybody kind of falling over. So after Katie gives her remarks, feel free to move back into the shade, or you can stay in here. We just want to make sure you don't want to lose any of the fun. So you can stay here if you're comfortable, but please feel free to move back into the shade so we don't okay. You ready?
Good morning. Before I begin, I need to thank a lot of people, and I can't do it individually. But importantly, we shouldn't have to be here, but we are. I need to thank this incredible group of 60 volunteer committee members that have organized in 1 week to create something that no one signed up to do. I need to thank the family members, survivors themselves, and members of the impacted communities of mass shootings across the country, which is a sentence I shouldn't have to say, for being brave, coming here, and using their voice. I need to thank every supporter, every walk of life from across the country, because this is what it's about. This is a human issue. This is not political. And we have one voice and one message, which is to federally ban assault weapons now. Trust me, I will get to that later. I need to thank the media. Without you, our voices would be limited to my very, very few Instagram followers. Thank you. Thank you for supporting the messaging. I need to thank humans, and that's where I'll leave that. My name is Kitty Brantner. I am a working mother of 3 children under 5. I am here from the cheap seats. I've got 3 kids that, as of today, have not been impacted directly by a mass shooting. The fact that I have to say that out loud is insane. I have a lot of emotion around this. What's been most empowering is the unified support we've received. Again, every political party, gun owners, every walk of life, thank you, human beings, mothers, fathers, children themselves, politicians, you name it, that all want the same thing. And we are tired of being told that it can't be done. We want a federal ban on assault weapons, and we want it right now. We want to make Highland Park the last community impacted by a mass shooting. Yesterday, several very, very brave survivors and members impacted by mass shootings from Highland Park and Uvalde came together along with our committee members, and we met with a number of legislators and lawmakers. Those meetings were incredibly emotional. Those meetings were incredibly powerful. And the message we received is we kind of just need something to push this over the edge. We are here to push this over the edge. Today, I can't, again, with my thank yous, thank everyone enough for being here. What we set out to do a week ago was to come to DC and have our voices heard. We're here. We're having our voices heard, and we are going to federally ban assault weapons right now. Thank you, everyone, for your support. There is more unification than we know in the country around this issue, and we will not listen to people who say it can't be done, because it can. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We shouldn't have to be here, but we are, so we're not going to shut up until they do it. I'd like to introduce our next speakers, Erin McGlinchey and Carrie Drummond. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Special thanks to our friends from Uvalde and Highland Park, and anyone else in this crowd who has been impacted by gun violence, and that means everybody here. If you go to the grocery store, if you go to your park, if you participate in a community event or a parade, or God forbid, go to an outdoor concert, none of those places are safe anymore. And I think this group is here to say we're done. We're done being scared in our schools. We're done being scared when we go out in public. We're done being scared of some forces bigger than us, they tell us, that are trying to stop us from banning assault weapons. We're done. We're done. I am a mom. I am a teacher. I am also someone who goes to the grocery store. I'm someone who goes to walk my dog in the park. I'm somebody who wants to go to a 4th of July parade safely. I am done being scared in public spaces because somebody else says that their rights are more important than ours. That is not the way we live in this country. 5 years ago, my children and I were surprised when we were walking our dog. There was a shooting in the park across the street from our house. Members of our Congress were shot at in our neighborhood. Unfortunately, 5 years later, we were at a 4th of July parade in Highland Park, and we had to dodge from bullets there too. This is not right. It is not right that as a teacher and as a mom of 2 kids who go to public schools, we have to worry about this stuff. This is not right, and we are done. Like you see all these signs saying, enough is enough. We are finished listening to people tell us that we can't make change, because we can and we will. Thank you.
My name is Abby Brosio, and I am here today to make all of you uncomfortable with my story. I am a survivor of gun violence. I cringe at the sound of this new title because it is not a title that I chose for myself. A title that I did choose for myself is mother. Notice how I said I chose that for myself. We'll get to that later. During my 3 short years as a mother, I have been forced to shelter my 2 babies from the invisible threat of a virus. This past spring, I began to slowly acclimate my children to the public places. Not an easy task with a 3 and a 1-year-old. My 1-year-old literally hugged a public garbage can the other day. We're working on it. I mustered up the courage to take my children to a 4th of July parade, the very first large gathering we have been to during this pandemic. When my 3-year-old inquired about what the parade was, I explained that it was a celebration of our country's freedom and supplemented the lesson by showing him Elmo's Furry Red Monster Parade so he had an idea of what to expect, a video that played numerous times in the days leading up to the 4th. I am sad to say that with the 5-minute experience we had at the parade, my son was unable to draw a lot of comparisons. We made a very last-minute decision to attend the Highland Park parade. My husband manages the Gearhead store outside of the heart of downtown Highland Park. They were one of the only stores open on the 4th, and he was working, so he suggested it would be good for the kids. My mother and father-in-law joined us as well, and we situated ourselves outside of my husband's store so that he could visit when business was slow. As we got situated, my father-in-law glanced behind me at the intersection of Central Avenue and 2nd Street, and pointed out that there was no police car blocking off the intersection. This elicited a bit of fear and heightened precaution in me as I thought of the recent events in Waukesha, Wisconsin, when a driver killed 5 and injured 40 people during a Christmas parade for speeding through a barricade. I suppose it's just one of those things, though, you know, living in America. I glanced behind me to check the street more than a couple of times as the parade began. My 1-year-old daughter began to fuss, so I picked her up to bring her inside of my husband's store so she could run around in a more controlled environment. Just as I made my way to the store, mere feet behind me, I began to hear what I thought were fireworks, as it was a 4th of July parade. All at once, the earlier heightened fear allowed me to think more clearly. Gunshots. 17 seconds. As I watched the security footage from my husband's store, from the moment my husband reacted to the commotion, to the moment I ran through the store with my daughter adhered to my chest, it was 17 seconds. It's amazing how quickly the brain can take in and process information during such a rush of adrenaline. I'm foggy on the order of what occurred during those 17 seconds, but at some point my brain ordered me to look to where the noise was coming from. And I think the only reason my brain did this was because I was already hyper-focused on the potential dangers of this event. My eyes fixated on the roof of the building adjacent to my husband's store. There, crouched with a large gun, was a figure with long hair. A shooter, I thought. A woman? I thought to myself, no, a woman is not shooting at us. This is a dream. This cannot be happening. My brain then directed me back to reality, my babies. I hit the ground while holding my daughter against me. I was able to scream to the crowd that it was a shooter and to get down. In hindsight, getting down was probably not the best move considering our assailant was above us. I saw my father-in-law down near me, and we locked eyes maybe for only a millisecond, but enough to give me just one eased breath. We were only on the ground for seconds before I was able to see how close my husband's store was and make a run for it. I pleaded for those nearby to get in as I screamed my son's name, hoping and praying that my mother-in-law had him safe in her arms. As I ran to the store, I felt something graze my side. Not enough pain to stop, just enough to take notice and pray that my baby in my arms would be unharmed. As my husband reached for me, I repeated over and over to him, I saw them, they're on the roof. I screamed for my son. 3 seconds. 3 seconds after entering the store, the footage showed my father-in-law followed by my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law had fallen on her way into the store and scooped my son underneath her as she continued to shelter his body from a barrage of bullets as they quickly crawled into the store on their hands and knees. Watching my mother-in-law enveloping my baby boy to shield him from death made my heart ache in a way that I cannot put into words. Followed were hours of breathing, alternating panic and calm, fear and gratitude. After knowing my family was safe, my husband, with the support of his father-in-law and his amazing staff, were able to secure the store, tend to injuries, and support law enforcement and first responders. My husband grabbed merchandise off of his shelves and began distributing anything and everything people needed. He ripped open first aid kits meant for camping trips, gathered a large box of red North Face cups to be filled with the store's water fountain, and distributed them to those who needed hydration or to clean their wounds. My husband acted heroically and instinctively. His store was one of the only accessible buildings to seek refuge, and there is no doubt that he saved countless people that day. I was interviewed by police shortly after entering the store, being one of the only witnesses that saw the shooter. After indicating the location of the shooter, which I was certain of, the officer asked if I could describe in detail what the shooter looked like. I said, all I saw was long hair and a big gun. And I know this sounds strange, but I was really uneasy because it looked like a female to me. The officer took down my observations and nodded his head. Hours later, I heard on the news that the shooter was dressed as a female as he fled the scene in an attempt to not draw attention to himself. A chill fell over me. My eyes hadn't deceived me. My senses were heightened in the chaos, and I thank God for that. Shortly after being interviewed, I was sent to triage on the benches just below the store where I had seen the shooter on the roof. I was in no rush for medical attention, especially as I looked around with my hand covering my mouth, tears welling up in my eyes. People were covered in blood. First responders were rushing all throughout the intersection, tying tourniquets, applying pressure, giving chest compressions, and covering bodies. A woman next to me was terribly wounded, and so was her son, clutched to her side. After getting her set up with an IV bag that her son bravely ensured stayed upright, the responders needed help with a man behind me with a pale face and blood draining quickly from his body. The woman was drifting in and out of consciousness. I was given gloves to apply pressure to her foot, and she screamed in agony, the pain of gunshot wounds and a pain in her heart. Her other son had been airlifted to a hospital with her husband. Her son had been shot and was unconscious. She pleaded to be taken to him. I couldn't get her out of my head. I was happy to hear that the 8-year-old baby boy was alive, but shattered completely to hear that he was left with a severed spinal cord and would be paralyzed for the rest of his life. Their lives and thousands of others are forever altered by the events that must have lasted less than a minute. Just one gun. This was the account of the unfathomable day that I gained the unwanted title of a survivor. Though this was not a title I chose for myself, it will now be with me forever. As a mother, I am unwilling to let what happened to my family, to my babies, be on one of the most celebrated national holidays, a day that represents freedom, be another thought and prayer. My family doesn't feel free. I am constantly anticipating my next panic attack, the next time my 3-year-old will verbalize and question a memory from that day, my daughter's sudden clinginess to us, or how my husband might react going back to his work in Highland Park. These feelings make me feel trapped, not free. As a science teacher, a title that I have given to myself, I am here to educate you because I'm damn good at it. When I teach students problem-solving skills from a scientific standpoint, students learn the basics of identifying and changing variables within a problem to test different possible outcomes. Our country has a problem, a very big problem. We experience mass shootings at a horrific rate. Some variables that have been changed in the past to help reduce the shootings include teaching schools and workplaces how to best defend themselves and shelter in place during these events, teaching first responders specific protocol to apprehend gunmen, protect civilians, and clear a scene, and implementing specific instructional time for social emotional learning in schools. These are just a few examples from the forefront of my mind being in a profession plagued by the problem. While each of these strategies are important when these tragic events do occur, none of these changed variables have allowed us to arrive at our intended outcome, to stop mass shootings. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Imagine yourself conducting an experiment over and over and over again and arriving at the same results. How frustrating must that be? Let's change a different variable. Let's just test it. If it doesn't work, then back to the drawing boards. Let's really take a look at our priorities. Let's take a look at our gun policies. Let's see if changing key aspects of this variable, such as removing access to assault weapons, will help our intended outcome. Let's focus on this variable. My 13 and 14-year-old students understand this concept, and I'm here to help all of you understand it too. Let's be an example to them. They are watching us. They are our future. Let's ensure they have a future. The solution is so simple it makes me want to cry in frustration. This should not be political. I am done being complacent and desensitized. I am certainly sick of everyone's empty thoughts and prayers with no action to back them up. Action is what is needed now. I am a proud mother, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. I am a proud teacher. I am disgusted to now say that I am a survivor of gun violence, a title that is likely to leave me with not only mental, but physical scars. I hope you're uncomfortable. I am uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Let's begin.
Good morning. I am Representative Brad Schneider. I represent the 10th District of Illinois. I represent Highland Park, and I live in Highland Park. It is my community. Let me start by saying thank you for coming here. I wish it wasn't necessary, but it is so important that you're here. Thank you. Thank you for your great words a moment ago. And as I listened to the child in the background. I imagined the parent, the anxiety of the parent of their child throwing a temper tantrum. I imagined the anxiety. I remembered the anxiety when my kids were that age, throwing a temper tantrum. And all I could think of is how beautiful that sound was. How wonderful it is to think of a child behaving as a child should. I look at the sign over here that says, I want my son to grow up. With the lines drawn through, just stop right there. We want our kids to grow up and know that they can. 10:14 a.m. on July 4th, 2022, as a community like so many other communities around this country, was honoring our nation's independence, celebrating our freedom, and embracing the aspirations of our founders 246 years ago. At 10:14 a.m., 83 shots rained down from a roof above, shattering the moment, destroying lives, and leaving a community changed forever. I want to take a moment to reflect on the lives who were murdered. Catherine Goldstein, Irina McCarthy, Kevin McCarthy, Stephen Strauss, Jackie Sondheim, Nicholas Toledo Zaragoza, Eduardo Uvalde. Each and every one of them was the center of their family. Each and every one of them was a vibrant soul and an integral part of our communities. Each and every one of them loved life and wanted desperately to live. You've heard some of the stories, but I'm going to repeat two of them. When the shots rang out, Kevin and Irina, who were there with their 2-year-old son, Aiden, acted as all of you did here, or would here. The first instinct, protect our children. Kevin covered his son, Aiden, to protect him from the gunfire and lost his own life. Aiden, today, 2 years old, is an orphan. Stephen Strauss, 88 years old, was a part of our community. He loved classical music, loved going to the art museum. And he loved the 4th of July parade. So he packed up his chair and he went and he sat there. It was the last thing he would do. But I had the privilege of being with Highland Park Chief of Police, Lou Jogman, as he told Stephen's wife that Stephen did not die alone, that a police commander stood with him and made sure that he knew he wasn't alone. Chief Jogman said on Monday the 4th that our community saw both sides of humanity. The evil that gets an assault weapon, a weapon of war, climbs a roof and fires 83 shots in a blink of an eye, trying to kill as many people as he can. But also the heroism of the police and the fire and the civilians who didn't run from the fire but ran to those who had fallen, giving them the help that they needed, saving lives. Highland Park's strong and we will recover. But Highland Park has experienced something that no community should ever experience, and too many communities suffer each and every day. Highland Park was the 308th mass shooting in the United States in 2022. 300 mass shootings in this country in less than half a year. No other country experiences this. It is only the United States, and it's because of one thing: access to guns, and in particular, access to assault weapons, weapons of destruction, of war. We must ban assault weapons. You're going to hear a moment from one of my colleagues and dearest friends, Senator Tammy Duckworth. And Tammy, I'm sorry I've got to use your words because I've been repeating it ever since. After the shooting on July 4th, Tammy immediately came to our community, came to offer support, to offer condolences, to offer strength. And Tammy said that the sounds we heard that day, whether you were there or you heard it afterwards in the video, the sounds of those bullets striking flesh, causing death, terrorizing a community, those aren't sounds you hear in the United States on the 4th of July. They're the sounds you hear on the battlefield of war. Those are weapons of war. They don't belong on the streets. So let me repeat. Let's ban assault weapons. I'll close with two last things. First, today in the House, we'll be voting on legislation to create an Amber Alert for mass shootings. I spoke today to the Democratic caucus meeting. After saying we have to ban assault weapons, I asked for support in David Cicilline's bill on this Amber Alert. Those of us who were in Highland Park know how important it is. Those that were at the site of the shooting first thought it was fireworks, as you heard, and then it was, no, these are gunshots. Those further away only heard by word of mouth what was going on. For moments, we didn't know what was happening, and then for hours, we didn't know the full extent. And for 8 hours, our community was told to shelter in place because the shooter was at loose. The legislation we're voting on in the House today is legislation that will ensure that next time this happens, and though there shouldn't be a next time, we know that there will be, that communities will be able to get the information they need that will save lives. That's a step. But we need to do so much more. We need to not only ban assault weapons, we need universal background checks. We need to make sure that people who buy guns can't take them across state lines and make it a federal crime if they give those guns to someone who shouldn't have a gun. You being here, and again, thank you, is what's necessary, not just today, but over and over again, to hold our representatives in the House and in the Senate to account, to stand up, to take the action, to keep our kids safe in our schools, people safe in their house of worship or grocery stores, and spectators safe at a 4th of July parade. Last thing I'm going to say is Highland Park is strong. We will heal and we will recover. And we are grateful for the support of those first responders and heroes on the day of the shooting, and for our neighbors and the communities across the country and their support for the days after. From Buffalo to Uvalde to Highland Park, and I pray nowhere else after this, we as a country will stand together, and we, this movement here, will march forth to make sure we keep our kids safe. Thank you very much.
Well, it's an honor to be here to say hello to everyone, but I wish we weren't here to have to do this. I'm Senator Tammy Duckworth, the junior senator from Illinois. And when Highland Park shooting happened on the 4th of July, I was just starting off at a parade. And I remember before we went home for the 4th of July homework period, some of my colleagues asked, "You still do parades? They're dangerous." I said, "Yeah, I still do parades because I need to talk to my constituents and see people." I had no idea that I was actually headed back to my state where there would be yet another mass shooting, this time on the 4th of July. And Congressman Schneider is right. The last time I heard that type of gunfire was on the battlefield. In fact, it was AK-47 rounds with that same rapid fire rate impacting the fuselage of my aircraft in flight. These are weapons of war. They were able to penetrate the fuselage of my aircraft in flight, traveling at 130 miles an hour from the ground. Imagine what the same type of weapon does to a human body or a child's body. And so I get a lot of pushback from folks who say, well, I need them to go hunting. I need, we want assault weapons because I go hunting, and we can't raise the age limit on assault weapons to 21 because families go hunting, and we want to buy a gun for our kids so that they can go hunting because it's a family tradition. Let me tell you that banning assault weapons does not jeopardize any of those family traditions. You can still buy a .22. You can still have access to a .30-06. You don't need an assault weapon, a weapon of war. And by the way, if you are using an AR-15, an M4, an AK-47 to hunt, you're not eating what you're hunting because you will shred that animal. And then we need to ban high-capacity magazines. There's no need for anyone to have a 100-round drum that can fire literally dozens and dozens of rounds at high velocity in a short amount of time. And for the marksmen who say, but I like to go to the range and shoot, and what I say to them, and this is the argument you give back when they say this to you, is actually in all shooting competitions, swapping out magazines is part of the demonstration of your skill level. No one needs a 100-round drum because it's not even used in shooting competitions. And if you're using a 100-round drum to go hunting, I don't want to go hunting with you. So I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I am so upset and so angry because I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I was telling folks yesterday that after Uvalde, was scrolling looking for where I could buy ballistic backpacks and ballistic whiteboard markers, whiteboards for my daughter's school. Is that where we are today? Is that where we are? Where we send our kids to school with ballistic backpacks? And by the way, those ballistic backpacks would not have saved anybody on the 4th of July because they just can't block against that velocity, the firepower that comes from these weapons. We need to raise the buying age for assault weapons. We need to ban them. We need to ban high-capacity magazines. The leading killer of children under the age of 16 in this country is gun violence. It's gun violence. Enough is enough. And I want you to be angry, because I am angry, and you need to be angry. And we need to make this happen. We passed a very small step forward a month ago. And I'm proud that we did that, because there was a lot of money in there for mental health. There was a lot of, that is great. We need it. And a lot of the money in there for mental health for our kids in schools. There was money in there to help keep our schools safer. We expanded red flag laws, more background checks. So anybody under the age of 21 buying assault weapons has to go through more steps. But at the end of the day, no one should be buying assault weapons, period, because they should be banned. And on the 4th of July, to those who say what we need are not to ban assault weapons, but more good guys with guns. We had a lot of good guys with guns at that parade route. Those police officers were remarkable and brave and ran into the gunfire. But the fire, the pace and the rapidness of those rounds were so fast that they did not have time to respond. Good guys with guns is not the answer. And yes, we need more money. We need more money for mental health. But I will tell you that someone with mental health issues can do a heck of a lot more damage with an assault weapon than with a knife. And a person, the murderer who massacred those people on the 4th of July, had his knives taken away. He had his knives taken away, but nobody took away his guns? Are you kidding me? Unacceptable is absolutely right. So get angry, stay angry. Let's get this done. I will show up every single day. Yesterday I was asked, it seems so overwhelming, it seems depressing, why do you show up? I show up every single day because I want my kids to grow up. I want your kids to grow up. I want this to be an America where somebody's Second Amendment right does not cancel out somebody else's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because your Second Amendment right does not cancel out my kids' right to live. Thank you for letting me be here. Let's get out there and let's fight.
Believe it or not, I'm going to have to vote right here. Bring it to me so I can say aye when it's time, Alex. Okay. So I am here mostly to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, we in the Congress follow your lead. And the only reason that we even got the legislation that the president signed into law to control guns is because of activists demanding that there be some action. I want to thank all the people that met with me yesterday, the Highland Parkers who met with me yesterday, who told me their stories of being at the parade. I'm Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. I represent the 9th Congressional District just south of you. I live in Evanston. I was on my way to the parades in Skokie and in Evanston that were canceled, of course, and all over around that were canceled because of your tragedy. But what I saw from the people from Highland Park that I saw yesterday, and all of you that are here today, is that you now are the warriors for justice for a ban on assault weapons. You can do this. We can do this. It is inevitable that it has to happen. What's happening in the United States of America is totally unacceptable. You know that guns are the #1 cause of death of children in the United States of America. More than car accidents, more than cancer or any other disease. It's guns that are killing our children. Do you know that in the last 2 decades, more children have died from guns than on-duty police and active military? Our children are dying because of guns. Our families are being destroyed. Our communities are being destroyed. What is the answer? The answer is you. The answer is your organizing. The answer is the organization that you created. The answer is to not ever give up until we ban these weapons of war. I want to thank you so much for your effort. The United States of America represents 2.2% of the world's population, 46% of the guns. You know how many people were killed in Japan last year? No, we just saw an assassination of the former prime minister. You know how many all around? 10 people shot to death in Japan. You know how many in the United States? 40,600 people killed by guns. Say it with me. Enough is enough. Is enough. Enough is enough. We can do this. And so I'm so grateful to you. My heart is just breaking for those people who have suffered. And what I heard from the people yesterday is those of you who were there with your children are suffering too. The trauma that your children experience, the trauma that you experience, going to one of the happiest days of the year to celebrate the 4th of July. These people have stolen our culture. They have stolen our history. We will not let it happen. So stick with us. We will stick with you, and we will triumph, and we will end these weapons of war. We will end we will have a ban on assault weapons. You keep it up, we will do it.
My name is Kimberly Rubio. When it comes to public speaking, I'm usually an observer. As a news reporter, as an involved and informed citizen, being on this side of the lectern is not something I relish. My voice shakes, and my grief is evident, overwhelming. But if my words resonate with even one politician and encourage them to push for change, then I'll be saving so many parents from the devastation that is burying your child. That's reason enough for me to stand up and speak on days like today when I barely want to get out of bed. Imagination is a hauntingly beautiful thing, able to conjure up images from a few descriptive words. My mind has been running nonstop since May 24th, 2022, when my daughter Lexi was murdered in a mass shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. I try to view room 111 through her eyes. I picture which side of the room she and her classmates huddled against as an 18-year-old man, gunfire, fired toward them, killing them so swiftly that their teacher, who lay bleeding nearby, said he didn't hear a whimper or cry. I envisioned the scene facing the justice of the peace, this tall man with a strong community presence, whose son plays basketball with my son, whose daughter graduated alongside my own, as he walked into my youngest daughter's classroom, tasked with pronouncing dead multiple 9, 10, and 11-year-olds. Now I want you to picture my face, my husband's face, as we read our daughter's death certificate. Our faces contorted in pain, tears flowing freely, as we read her cause of death, gunshot wound to the head. 10:54 that morning, and there are a lot of what ifs. What if I had taken her home after the award ceremony? What if the doors had just locked properly? The outside door leading into the school, the classroom door that the shooter seemed to intentionally seek out? What if the police had immediately engaged the subject? These are all questions that do not weigh heavily on lawmakers. After all, they are not us, Kimberly and Felix Rubio, Lexi's parents. They are not school staff or police. They are not Uvalde law enforcement. But there is one question that should be on the forefront of their minds. What if the gunman never had access to an assault weapon? I want that question to be the first thing to cross their mind in the morning, and the last thought they have before they go to bed each night. Because we are no longer asking for change. We are demanding it, and we are angry as hell.
Good morning. My name is Revi Pearl. I'm a wife, mother of 3, longtime resident of Chicago, and newish resident of Highland Park. And as of last week, I have added a new title, that of survivor. I also am the aunt of 2 Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting survivors. And I recognize that it is an incredible gift and privilege to be able to stand before you, sharing that my family and I survived, especially in light of so many fellow attendees here today that cannot say the same. I'm in awe of their strength and bravery and hope you truly hear their stories. I want my presence here today to change our legislation for not only those whose lives were lost or injured by gunfire, but for every child who ran for their lives last Monday, 4th of July. I am here representing not only myself and my family, but also so many of my friends who are still so very deeply in the trenches of grieving. And for my neighbor's daughter who isn't speaking anymore, and my friends whose 2 kids can't yet sleep anywhere other than in their parents' beds. My husband, 3 children, and I were walking in the parade with the float that represented my children's summer camp. Our story is not different from so many others here. We heard gunshots, we ran, we hid, we saw horrifying images, and eventually got home. But I'm here to provide a different perspective and drive home the broader impact of gun violence. Due to my husband's quick thinking and actions, we survived. But I would like to impart an extremely short sample of the questions that Eliana, my 6-year-old daughter, has asked me in the last week. Instead of practicing her cartwheels and playing house with her brothers, her mind is entirely consumed with the following. Mommy, can bullets get through my door? Can they go through my window at night when I'm sleeping, when we're in the living room? Where does a bullet have to hit me to kill me? When will my nightmares stop? Why couldn't the people that fell on the ground be protected by their mommies and daddies? Was your hand over my heart when we were hiding because you would stop the bullet from killing me? There were so many families and children who were there that parade morning who all came to celebrate America and everything we stand for. And instead, the 4th of July has now come to represent a quintessential American experience, a mass shooting. Like so many others here, I never would have imagined this would be my story, that I would be sharing, looking out at all of you, and understanding how frequent mass shootings are in our country. Statistically, though, this will be your story, too. Your town could be a hashtag. Your children will be survivors, God willing, and the shooting site will be repainted. In the words of Highland Park Mayor Nancy, we do have the ability to take action and eliminate weapons of war from our neighborhoods. Highland Park will get through this tragedy, but let's make it the last community that needs to. I know that earlier this week, President Biden signed a law that will help, and I'm a parent, not a politician, but I know that that's not enough to stop this from happening again. We want a federal ban on assault weapons now. And I will end with the question that Eliana asks that keeps me up at night the very most. Mommy, this won't happen again to me, right? Let my daughter's voice compel you to do more. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Javier Cáceres. My wife, Gloria Cáceres. Our daughter was one of the 21 killed in Uvalde, Texas by a mass shooter. Can you all please do me a favor and close your eyes and remember these names? Alexandra Rubio, Alicia Ramirez, Anne-Marie Jo Garza, Annabelle Rodriguez, Ileana Garcia, Ileana Torres, Eva Mireles, Irma Garcia, Jacqueline Cáceres, my daughter, Jayla Silguero, Jace Luemenos, Jose Flores, Leila Salazar, Maite Rodriguez, McKenna Elrod, Miranda Mathis, Neve Bravo, Rogelio Torres, Tess Mata, Uzziah Garcia, and Xavier Lopez. I made a promise to my daughter while she lay in a cold slab, cold. I picked up the sheet, was wrapping her body, and saw her wounds that pierced her little heart. My little girl fought there at the school till she couldn't no more. Our gloves are off. We're here to kick some ass. We're here to help ban assault weapons. Again, we love each and every guys out here. You know, we all been impacted one way or another. And like the senator said earlier, enough is enough. We are gonna fight, and we're not stopping until something is done. Thank you.
Can you guys repeat after me? Everyday shootings are everyday problems. Let's make sure that they can hear us. Everyday shootings are everyday problems. My name is Keena Collins. Can y'all hear me? Okay. My name is Keena Collins. I'm from the city of Chicago. My survivor story started at the same age as the Uvalde, Texas students, the Sandy Hook students. I witnessed the murder in my community on the west side of Chicago. I knew the victim, I knew the shooter, and it changed the entire trajectory of my life. What I also knew was that the bullet was flying long before anybody pulled the trigger. This is a policy choice that our elected officials are making, and we today are saying enough. Representative Schakowsky came up here and talked about the 40,000 people a year that die by way of gun violence. That's 40,000 deaths that could have been prevented. And when we talk about gun violence, yes, we need to ban assault rifles here in the United States of America. But we also need to make sure that we are holding gun manufacturers in this country accountable. We know, and we've read the campaign donations of our political figures. We follow the money. And we know that the price tag that has been put on the lives of the American people by way of these campaign donations is way too low. Our communities are paying the high price. We're paying the price of our sanity. We're paying the price of our peace. We're paying the price of our lives. And it's not right. Our teachers, what has been the response to these mass shootings? It hasn't been to protect our students and our teachers. Our teachers don't need guns from the federal government. Our teachers need resources. Why in this country is it easier for us to get a gun than it is to vote in the United States of America. This isn't, you know, we've heard in these last few weeks of the argument about the sanctity of life, et cetera, but we have banned reproductive health care before we banned assault rifles in the United States. So we have a lot of work to do. When we talk about gun violence, we have to understand that this problem is intersectional. We have to center the voices of those with mental health who are getting stigmatized in our country. We know the statistics. The statistics say that those with mental health actually experience more violence than they actually put out into the community. And if it is the case that mental health is the cause of these mass shootings, then we need to fund mental health services in this country. We also know that that is a red herring. People with mental health issues live in Canada. They live in China. They're not having these mass shootings like we are here in the United States. Everyday shootings are everyday problems for everyday people. And what I love about the Highland Park survivors and the Uvalde, Texas survivors who have come together, you have said and united in a message. This is not about Democrats or Republicans, red or blue, because bullets don't have names on them and they don't have party affiliation. We need to hold people accountable. Bullets. Sorry, y'all, I'm getting excited because y'all, as a survivor, I know the level of trauma that you will deal with for the rest of your lives. And our elected officials who are writing this legislation, they are writing legislation that is not protecting us, and some of them have never even heard a gun go off. We have to center the voices of survivor families and those who have survived gun violence. We also have to name all the forms of gun violence in our country, from suicide to domestic violence, mass shootings, and everyday shootings that happen in black and brown communities. Yeah, let's ban assault rifles, but also let's fund our communities. Let's make sure that we fund our schools, fund our health care, fund our housing, fund the ability to eradicate poverty in our country. You all are the true patriots in this country. People who can get up and use their voice for those who are voiceless, those who are not here for us, with us anymore. And so I hope that our elected officials are listening, because if you aren't, you are going to have to deal with the wrath of all of these parents. And I don't know if they're ready for that, y'all. I don't know if they're ready for that. And so we need to make sure that Highland Park is the last mass shooting. But if we keep having watered down legislation, our reality is that it will not be. And I do not want to continue to come to these press conferences. I am tired as a young black person who grew up in Chicago and the city of Chicago being used as a political punching bag around the situation of guns. Why is it important that we pull all communities together from Highland Park to Uvalde, Texas, and we center things like the city of Chicago? 60% of the guns coming into the city of Chicago are coming from 3 states mainly: Wisconsin, Indiana, and Mississippi. All of those states, Indiana, listen up, right? Texas, listen up, which I'm going to get on Governor Abbott in Texas. 60% of the guns that are coming into the city of Chicago and used during crimes are not in Chicago. Do you know that in Chicago we don't have a single gun shop? We don't have a single shooting range. So Chicago is not spreading gun violence to other states. Other states are spreading gun violence to the city of Chicago. This is not political, and I want to make that very clear, but immediately after the Uvalde, Texas shooting, the families of the victims deserved it. They deserve so much more. You deserve better than what happened. And what did Governor Abbott do? He talked about the city of Chicago. Governor Abbott needs to keep the city of Chicago out of his mouth. and focus on how we can turn real leadership into saving lives for the people in Texas. That is what is important. And our representatives have come up here and they said it themselves. This whole argument about good guys with guns versus bad guys with guns. The United States of America has more guns than we can even count for every man, woman, and child in the United States. If guns were the things that kept us safe, the United States would be the safest country in the world. And so I thank you all so very much for being here. I thank the families of Highland Park for pulling everyone together. This fight has not ended. We are just beginning. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Chris Murphy. I'm a United States Senator from Connecticut. Listen, I am so grateful that you are here today. I am in awe of the courage that Highland Park families, that Uvalde families, that Chicago families have shown to both process your grief and your loss, and then to also be here to speak truth to power, to tell this place no more. No more mass shootings, no more kids going to school in fear, no more exposure to daily gun violence in places like Chicago and Hartford and Bridgeport. This is all a choice that we make. None of this is inevitable. No child that has been shot is unlucky. This only happens in the United States of America. It is our choice to be this violent, and so it can also be our choice to stop it. And so you know you have a lot of allies here in the United States Senate. You have a growing number of members in the House and the Senate who are prepared to do the right thing, but not enough. Not enough. And I'm going to give you a hard truth. The decisions that get made in this place are often based on what people think are going to happen in the next election, right? And so for a long time, people made the decision here that they could get away with voting to compromise kids' safety. They could get away with allowing our cities to be killing fields because they guessed that the 90% of Americans that want these changes wouldn't act on those beliefs when they went to the ballot box. But those days are over. Those days are over. And the clear message that we need to send it is that if you're not going to get on the side of community safety, if you are not going to take the side of our kids, then we are not punching your ticket back to the United States Congress. And listen, I wish that that's not how it worked, right? I wish that people just saw what was right. I wish that people just changed their mind. But if you can't change people's minds, then you have to change the people that get sent to Congress. And that is what we are going to do. So, listen, I'm just simply here to say thank you. I've been a part of this movement for the last 10 years. There are a lot of days in my life that I have felt deeply embarrassed by the fact that I didn't work on this issue until it happened in my backyard, right? There were shootings happening every night just around the corner from the place that I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut. I should have been working on this long before Sandy Hook. But for the last 10 years, I have woken up every single day to eat, sleep, and breathe the issue of ending gun violence in this country. And we have made more progress. We have made more progress in the last 30 days than we made in the last 30 years. And the bill that we passed will save lives, undoubtedly. But what I know about great social change movements in this country, and I've studied them all, is that success begets success, right? No great social change movement got their first win and then went home. No, all of a sudden, you sense the power of advocacy. You see what it means to speak truth to power. You see that things can change. And so just like the early civil rights acts of the 1950s led to the 63 Act and the 64 Act, just like the early wins in the marriage equality movement eventually led to full marriage equality. What we know is that now that we have turned the tables, now that after 30 years of nothing, we have finally become stronger than the gun lobby, now nothing can stop us. Nothing can stop us. And so be impatient. Be impatient, right? Don't accept that it's going to take another 30 years, another 10 years, or another year, right? Demand that this happen now. Demand that we step up to the plate and pass a ban on assault weapons. Demand that we put in place universal background checks. Demand that we take away the liability protections from the gun industry. Demand that we fund community anti-gun violence initiatives all around the country. Demand all of that. Do not be patient. I'm just here to say thank you, because what I know is that we had a theory about 10 years ago. We said that we can build a movement that eventually will be more powerful than the gun lobby, that eventually will convince members of Congress to do the right thing. We have passed that tipping point now. And the question is, what next? How fast? But it can't come fast enough. It can't come fast enough. We do not have the luxury of time, because we know that without more changes made here, the next shooting is just around the corner. We know that the streets in Chicago and Hartford, New Haven, they are still not safe. But I have faith, given the number of people who are here on incredibly short notice, given the passion that you have, given the heroism shown by families, especially here from Uvalde and Highland Park, I know that everything is now possible. So don't accept that this is inevitable in this country. Stay at this. And you know what? The last thing I'll say is this. For those of you that are new to this movement, you are going to hit obstacles, right? You are going to have moments when people say no, when you don't get it as fast as we need it. Stay with it. Because the other thing I know about the great social change movements in this country's history is that they were so convinced of the righteousness of their cause. They were so sure that what they were doing was right and just, is that they didn't let anything stop them. They never gave up. And because they were so convinced of the righteousness of their cause, they eventually prevailed. So will we. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, y'all. I'm Sean Kasten from 6th District in Illinois. I represent the western suburbs of Chicago. I live 25 miles from Highland Park. I have too many friends who were there. Christmas Eve of this year, I took my daughter to the Oakbrook Mall, and as we were driving home, got a call saying that there was just a shooting and were we okay, and we cannot allow this to be normalized. As someone who represents the Chicago suburbs, I want to tell you a story about Chicago's and gangs, and I want you to tell this story to every single person who wants to put the word Chicago in their mouth, as Keena Collins said. Not that long ago, we had a gang war in Chicago. We had two gangs who were fighting each other for turf over their right to sell drugs on the street. One of them showed up and killed 8 members of the other gang. These were bad guys killing bad guys. And we decided at that moment that 8 people dying from gun crime, even if they were bad guys, even if they were gang members, was a problem. And you know what we did? We banned the gun that they used in that gun crime. I am talking about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in the 20s. These were Italian and Irish gangs fighting over prohibition turf, and we banned Tommy guns and we saved lives. And if you find it surprising that we give a crap when they are white people killing white people in gangs and we don't give a crap and we stereotype them, then you are starting to understand the problem. They saved lives when we banned those machine guns. To this day, you can't buy those guns that we banned in the 20s. And yet we allow people in Highland Park to carry guns that do the same thing that popped off 83 bullets in less than a minute and a half. Everything that Senator Murphy just described is massively popular. Banning assault weapons, background checks. I could go on and on down the line, but here's the deal. If you elect people who are advocating for things that are popular and stopping there, then by definition you are electing people who are incapable of leadership. because we got to do what's necessary. We have to acknowledge the fact that we live in a country that has more guns than people. If we got rid of 50% of all the guns in this country tomorrow, we would still have more guns per capita than any other country in the world. Yemen is number 2. And I don't hear anybody in Yemen complaining about whether their Second Amendment rights are being infringed upon. 2/3. Now, it's unpopular to say that, but you know what? That's our job. We got to keep that going. 2/3 of all mass shooters in this country have a history of domestic violence. If I told you that 2/3 of all traffic fatalities were in Dodge Darts, we would ban Dodge Darts tomorrow. And yet we still allow people with a history of domestic violence to own guns. Why is that? Because it's not politically popular. But we got to do it. We got to have a conversation about the fact that the Heller decision in this city is responsible for untold deaths because it completely corrupted our founders' intent and said that your right to kill somebody supersedes your right not to get shot. We have to push for all that. Because if you look at the numbers in our country today, if you look at the people who died in Uvalde and Buffalo and Highland Park, if you look at the 110 plus Americans who get shot every day, and you say to yourself, you know what is the most important thing to protect right now? The goddamn filibuster. Then you are a part of the problem. The American people want this. So keep pushing us. Keep electing people who will push for what is right and what is just. Keep electing people who are going to make sure that we never have to do this press conference again. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oscar Orona. I am from Uvalde, Texas. I am here with my wife and my son, Noah, who was in the classroom in Uvalde where both teachers were murdered along with several other students and right next door to the other classroom. My son was shot in the back and had to wait 77 minutes for someone to take action. While he lay there bleeding, he opened his eyes a few times, afraid to open his eyes because he was trying to play dead. The first time he opened his eyes, he saw some teeth. Now, if you have children, and if you want to try to play, what was that like? What was going through his mind? Then the next thing he saw was one of his classmates basically taking her last breaths and gurgling blood through her mouth and her nose. I don't wish this on anyone, but if we do not do something to ban these assault weapons, these weapons of mass destruction, because if you had seen his shoulder where the bullet exited, it looked like somebody had gotten a pair of scissors and just made all kinds of designs in his shoulder. My son is with us, but he is not the same young man that we were with early that morning before all of this happened. And he will never be the same. No matter how much counseling, no matter how much therapy, he will never be the same. And we mourn and we grieve for those 19 angels that lost their lives that day. But we cannot forget about those kids that were in those classrooms that survived and have basically been shunned because they're lucky they're alive. But they're not lucky. They face an uphill battle every day. I was telling a friend of mine, because he was asking, what are y'all doing next week? What are y'all doing next month? I said, we don't make plans anymore. We live our life day to day based on how my son is feeling and what he's encountering. What has triggered something that day, what he's thinking about. Can he get some rest that night that's coming up? I am jealous of the Highland Park community because their lawmakers are here speaking out for the banishing the assault rifles. I wish I could tell you that we had in Texas the same experience, but we do not. So we are making it our mission until we get people like these brave souls here wearing the orange t-shirts, and all of you here that have taken the time in this heat to listen to us. We will not rest. I will not rest. I don't care how long it takes until we ban assault rifles in Texas. God bless each and every one of you, and I hope you never have to go through this, ever. Thank you all so much.
Hello, my name is Angel Garza. Bear with me, I wasn't even planning to... Sorry, I was not planning to speak today. My name is Angel Garza. My daughter, Amory, was in the classroom that day and unfortunately did not make it out. I just want y'all to know that every night I wake up at 3 in the morning and my wife is sitting there crying, wondering why she's alive and our daughter isn't. I wake up next to my son, my 3-year-old son, and he asks me why. Why did we have to take his best friend to school that day? He doesn't want to go to school. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to leave our side. I'm up here because I'm begging you to make a change. Nobody sits here and thinks about these things because it doesn't happen to them. I promise you, you do not want this to happen to you. I promise you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Brantner. I want to thank everyone that is here in a show of support, from our survivors to our families, to our communities, to our lawmakers. There has to be a change. We have to ban assault weapons federally. Have to. Because of the outpour of support, because of all of us being here, we are going to be marching on to the Capitol. We're going to be meeting at First and C immediately following. And thank you all for your support. Let's go march.